Today I'm going to dig deep into an issue that should be very concerning to everybody that lives in Iowa and everybody that lives in an agriculture heavy state. Here in Iowa, we currently have a bill working its way through the legislature. Right now it's in the Senate. It's named Senate File 394. And this bill could very well impact our health, our rights to legal recourse and legal remedy when it comes to being harmed by corporations, manufacturers of chemicals or products. And then it could very well have negative implications for our future, our children's future, and our grandchildren's future. So I want to sound the alarm on Iowa Senate File 394. This is a bill that the lobbyists and the corporate sponsors do not want you to understand. It has been coined the Cancer Gag Act, and it has been nicknamed that for very good reason. Senate File 394 was introduced by Republican legislators in the state of Iowa. It is quietly being fast-tracked through the legislature. They do not want you to know about it. They don't want you to know that it's moving. But we cannot be fooled by this. It is more than a simple exemption, and tucked away behind the boring language of this bill is a dangerous new precedent. It gives pesticide manufacturers like Bayer and Monsanto immunity from lawsuits if their products are federally approved, even if they cause cancer. So I want to be very clear with the residents of Iowa. This law would take away your right as an Iowan to file a lawsuit to sue a chemical manufacturer of agricultural products, even if you can make the connection that that product made you sick or gave you cancer. And, this would impact farmers, landscapers, homeowners, anybody that would use agricultural chemicals. When it comes to the Cancer Gag Act, Monsanto and Bayer have a long legacy of lies related to their product Roundup. Now, if you read about it in the news, you may hear it referred to as glyphosate. Roundup and glyphosate are used interchangeably in the legal cases regarding these cancers and also in the news or the media. Glyphosate is the main ingredient or the active ingredient in Roundup, and it's the ingredient that has been linked to the types of cancers that are related to Roundup. Monsanto has a very long history of hiding the truth about Roundup. They have been sued in multiple other states, and they have been found liable for these cancers due to their products being deemed dangerous. The internal documents that were discovered during the trial process revealed that Monsanto knew that international research agencies had research findings that showed that glyphosate, the ingredient in Roundup, was linked to these cancers. And they took several measures to try to downplay that research, even to discredit the researchers that did that research. And also, they even tried to go the political route to get the Republican Party to help them pass federal laws that would silence that research. One of the things that they did is they manipulated the peer review process. So in scientific research, researchers will study, in this case, chemicals and cancers in populations that are exposed to those chemicals. And then once they finish their research, they will have peers, other scientists who are knowledgeable in the same types of research, review their work, to review their methods, to review their experiments, to make sure that they're valid, to make sure that it's good science. One of the things they do is they see if the experiment's repeatable, right? So Monsanto actually engaged in ghostwriting which means Monsanto wrote their own papers, wrote their own research, and then they went to researchers and said, hey, will you sign on to this research like you did it? They got multiple researchers to do this. And so they used that ghost written research to basically contest the research that was done by internationally renowned research agencies to try to say, oh, they're wrong, their research isn't any good. All of that came out in emails that were turned over to the lawyers who were representing farmers that had cancers related to Roundup. Another thing that Monsanto engaged in is when scientists perform research and they get findings that are significant, they will then turn their research into scientific journals, and they call them peer-reviewed journals. And so when you read a peer-reviewed journal, you know that the science behind the studies has been subjected to rigorous review, and that other renowned scientists, respected scientists, have looked at the methods and deemed that yes, it was good science, they had good experimental methods, and it's repeatable, right? It's not fraudulent. Monsanto actually went to some of these peer-reviewed journals, to their editors, and they pressured and threatened them to delete the research or to not publish it or to publish some kind of retraction. Some editors of research journals caved and did not publish the research that was detrimental to Roundup. They also colluded with some corrupt officials in the EPA. There was one EPA regulator, Jess Rowland, and she was quoted as saying, if I can kill this study, I should get a medal. And that was actually a quote taken, I believe, out of emails that the Baum-Hedlund law firm found in their discovery process during one of the Roundup trials. And so basically Monsanto lied, schemed, and 100% put their profits over the people. And they put their profits over the people who have made them wealthy year over year over year. Our farmers in Iowa who have been buying Roundup Ready products and Roundup herbicides and pesticides for decades. Those people who literally built Monsanto's business by buying their products and using their products in the field were disposable to Monsanto. Profits were more important. Then Bayer came along. So Bayer Pharmaceuticals was a German company. Monsanto was an American company. Bayer came in and they wanted to buy Monsanto. When one company buys another company, they're supposed to do extreme due diligence, a lot of research to see, is there a lot of liability out there? Are there, issues? Are there legal problems that we're going to inherit? And Bayer didn't really do superb due diligence. They spent $63 billion to buy Monsanto. And in that purchase, they inherited 125 Roundup cancer lawsuits. So then Bayer lost a lot of value in their stock market valuation, and they're, I think, on the German stock market. So once Bayer bought Monsanto, Monsanto got delisted from the United States stock exchange, and then, they went underneath Bayer, and now they're included in the German stock exchange. But Bayer lost a lot of value because of that, because they had to pay out over $10 billion in settlements to these farmers that had won judgments in court for, the courts finding that, yes, their cancers were linked to the use of Roundup. Bayer, instead of accepting responsibility for this, they are now coming to the United States and they are pushing the Republican legislatures in these heavy agricultural states and building allies with the Republicans and lobbyists and pushing for these shield laws so that they will never have to pay another cent, even though they know that their product causes cancer. Literally, the little guy, the Iowa farmer, the American farmer, or the farm worker, right? If we're working on a large corporate farm, the owner of that farm isn't out there using Roundup on a daily basis. It's the farm worker who doesn't even, ultimately profit from that farm. Bayer is trying to walk away from liability and from compensating these people who are made ill, catastrophically ill, that could end in death from the use of their product. Let's dig deeper into the playbook of corruption that has been laid out during the course of the Roundup cancer scandal. So there's a long history of ugly, unethical behavior, and if we don't stand up and if we don't push our legislators to say no to this law, to say no, we will not give you blanket immunity from causing cancer to our farmers, other companies will just do the same thing. They will see that the Iowa legislature has said it is 100% okay to put corporate profits and prioritize that over people. It will show these companies that the Iowa Republicans think that their constituents are disposable. Number one, the ghostwriting. Here's the deal. Monsanto didn't just ghostwrite the studies. They didn't just pay scientists to sign on. Monsanto did it in a way that made those studies look like they were independent research. They did it in a way that somebody reading the study to decide whether or not I want to use this chemical, to decide whether or not there's a risk to me using this chemical, the research was written so that there was absolutely no idea that the manufacturer of the chemical had a hand in writing the research. And then they took this ghost written science that looked independent, and that is what they gave to regulators in the United States to convince them that Roundup was totally safe, despite growing evidence from international cancer research groups that it was linked to cancer. They also put a lot of effort into building unethical relationships with regulators. And then meanwhile, they worked behind the scenes to block government agencies from exposing the truth. And this wasn't just in the US. They were going after these agencies in Europe too, trying to stop them from telling people that Roundup was linked to cancer. Here in the United States, the Republican Party went further. They carried quite a bit of the torch for Monsanto here in the US. The Republican Party actually tried to pass legislation that would prohibit the Centers for Disease Control from communicating with the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is kind of related to the World Health Organization. And, why would they do that? Because the International Agency for Research on Cancer is the agency that classified glyphosate, the ingredient in Roundup, as probably carcinogenic to humans. And Monsanto wanted to stop that information from getting out before it gained any traction, and people started looking at other research and putting things together. Now, you might think, maybe it's not a big deal now because we are hearing about this law and we can push our legislators to stop this law. But it is a big problem because one of the first things that Donald Trump did when he got inaugurated in 2025, he immediately withdrew the United States from the World Health Organization. He completely cut ties with an agency that is critical in global health responses and from sharing research on products, chemicals that are carcinogenic. So right now, if studies are being done in Europe on the same chemicals we use here, and they find out that those chemicals cause cancer, there is no communication line from them to us, because Donald Trump said, Centers for Disease Control, you cannot talk to the World Health Organization. All this does is just basically reinforce that the regulators, Monsanto, companies in the United States can take whatever measures are necessary to misinform the public, to lie about research, to discredit researchers. And even when these people were telling the truth, a company now can make a dangerous chemical. They can just go hire a PR firm and basically tell everybody it's safe. Donald Trump and the Republican Party right now are telling companies in America that's okay. If the state legislature in Iowa and Kim Reynolds signed this bill into law in Iowa, they're telling companies the same thing. You can poison our people and we won't do anything about it. In fact, we'll help you. We will help you get away with it. That is exactly what this bill is. Monsanto also smeared scientists who were publishing studies that show glyphosate causing tumors in rats. They completely went full-scale assault on journalists, pressuring them to retract studies. They also planted stories in the media, and they also threatened these researchers' careers. Retract your research or we will ruin you. None of this was an accident. This was a deliberate strategy carried out by a large corporation to protect their profits at any cost. And now, Iowa Republicans are picking up the torch. They're going to carry it over the finish line to make sure that in the future, these companies can avoid liability for putting products on the market that harm people. They are not protecting you. They are not doing the work of the people. They have been corrupted by the flash of dollar signs in their eyes from corporate profits. So what will the so-called Cancer Gag Act do to Iowans? What's the real impact going to be? Right now, Iowa farmers who develop cancers related to Roundup after years of using Roundup, they can hold Bayer accountable in court. They can file a lawsuit and get compensation or damages in order to help cover the cost of, their medical care for cancer, which, this is going to take a little bit of stress off of them when they're dealing with this terrible disease and off their families. And we know that cancer can be fatal. And if they do not get some compensation, it could leave their family in a bad debt situation. I mean, even if they do survive the cancer, they could end up in medical debt. Right now, medical debt is probably, I think, the leading cause of personal bankruptcy. And we're going to take away a remedy for people who get cancer from a chemical that they used that they were told was safe. Because Monsanto did say this is safe. Right now, this law says if the EPA had approved the label of these chemicals, the company would get a free pass. There'd be no way that the person who got cancer could get a remedy, compensation, or damages. But we already know, we saw in the web of lies that Monsanto used for years, that they were able to pressure regulators into doing their dirty work. Just because the label is approved by the EPA, was it really approved by the EPA through the proper process and the proper vetting and the proper review? Or was it approved through a process of a regulator who looked the other way and said, hey, if I approve this label, I should get a medal? There was corruption there. Do you really want to give away all of your opportunity for a legal remedy based on a label that may or may not have properly been awarded? I don't know. Not me. Here's the bigger problem. This bill is part of a bigger trend in Iowa. For several years, Republican lawmakers in Iowa, led by Governor Kim Reynolds, have been working overtime to strip Iowans of their right to legal remedies and to shield corporations from liability, putting corporate profits prioritized over the people that they represent. Whether it's trucking companies that They successfully passed laws to cap damages for truck accidents where people are injured in accidents with truck drivers. They've also gone after medical malpractice. So if you suffer an injury from a doctor making a mistake, there's limits on that now of what you can recover. There's just a long pattern of Kim Reynolds and the Republican Party in Iowa basically telling corporations, open season on Iowans, no tag required. You just come in and you take out as many as you want, and we will shield you from liability. We will limit the damages that they can get from you. We are moving more and more to an Iowa where we, the citizens, we, the voters, are disposable. To add to the sleaziness of all of this, Bayer engaged in a propaganda campaign basically in 2024 leading up to the election season. They were running feel-good ads showing happy farmers, happy kids playing in fields, basically, playing up how much Bayer supports Iowa farmers. But, behind the scenes, they didn't tell you in those ads that they were lobbying hard for this law, that they spent millions on these ad campaigns to soften their image and make us like them and make us think that they were, caring for us and on our side, when the whole time they're paying lobbyists to lobby our Republican representatives and senators to push through this immunity bill right through the back door of the Iowa legislature. So make no mistake, those ads were propaganda. They were designed to sway public opinion, to distract us from the fact that Bayer is fighting tooth and nail to escape responsibility for the cancer that their products cause. Further, this is a pattern that we are seeing more and more all the way to the national scale, where the Republican Party has become the Republican Party of the billionaires, the corporations, the wealthy, the oligarchs or the broligarchs or the finance bros or the tech bros. The Republican Party is not the party of the farmer. It is not the party of the working class. It is not the party of the middle class. They have abandoned us in pursuit of these corporate profits and the money that they can get from their lobbyists and their special interests and their super secret PAC funds. This is not an isolated event here in Iowa with them trying to shove this basically immunity bill for pesticide cancer. In 2023, they passed the law capping non-economic damages in trucking accidents. They capped it at $5 million. You might think $5 million is a lot of money. If you're in an accident with a trucking company driver and you die, right? $5 million is probably plenty of money for your family to, pay your final bills, pay your funeral, put some money away maybe if you left children behind for them to go to college. $5 million is a lot of money. On the flip side, they lost you. They lost you. So is $5 million really enough money, right? But now think about it. If you are in a trucking accident and the driver from the trucking company is at fault and your damages are capped at $5 million, and let's say you don't die, but you are disabled for life, you're going to need 24-hour care, you have catastrophic injuries, you'll never be able to work again, you will never be able to take care of your family. Do you think $5 million is going to cover everything that you need from that day until the last day of your life and have enough left over for your children and, a spouse that you might leave behind? People think, oh, $5 million, that's a lot of money. That's not, that'll be fine. But if you get into a catastrophic accident and somebody else is at fault, and this goes for the limits on medical malpractice as well. I don't know what the cap is on that. But $5 million, if you have 60 years left to live and you need round-the-clock care for a catastrophic injury, $5 million is probably not going to cut it. But Republicans do not care about that. They don't care if you have enough to be taken care of. They only care about corporate profits. They only care about the wealthy. Here we go. They're just trying to now move on to the next thing to limit the legal recourse that we as Iowans have when we are injured or harmed by somebody else or somebody else's product or somebody else's actions through no fault of our own. The human cost of this is behind every one of these Roundup lawsuits, the ones that have already been filed, the ones that have already been litigated, settled, all that. It's a piece of paper, filed in a court somewhere. But behind every one of those lawsuits is a person. Behind every one of those lawsuits is a farmer who used Roundup for years and now has cancer, or somebody that was a landscaper, trying to make it on their own, running their own landscaping business, trying to live the American dream and take risks and be an entrepreneur. And even if these people using Roundup followed all of the instructions on the labels, they still can get cancer. People like you and me thinking we've been told or we believe like these products are safe as long as I follow the rules on the label, like it's safe. I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to die. And what we're finding out is that, that's just not true. And the problem is they knew it. They knew it wasn't true. They knew it wasn't true for years. And they just tried to hide it and strong arm people to not talk about it and hide research and make their own fake research and publish it as real and use it as defense to discredit other research. It was shady. It was unethical. And it hurt people. And now they want to get off scot-free and not have to be held accountable. So the broader impact of this is not just about Iowa. If this bill passes here in Iowa, this is just a blueprint for other states. It'll set a very dangerous precedent where corporations can harm people and not be held accountable. All they have to do is come to Iowa, as the gateway state and get their law passed and, practice the wording here and then just take it and move it from one state to the next to limit the legal recourse for people that they are harming. And it's also not, just limited to chemicals or, pesticides. It'll be across industries. Like I already said, we saw medical malpractice remedies be limited. We've seen remedies for vehicle accidents caused by company truck drivers has been limited. So they're just practicing. And, what's it going to be next when one of Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets explodes over your house and falls and kills you and your family? Are we going to have a law that, your SpaceX is shielded from liability when debris from their rockets falls on people and kills them? Is that next? I don't know. Probably not far off. But we have got to stop this spread of these laws that just every day make the people who work for a living disposable in the name of corporate profits. This is about holding corporations that harm people accountable. It's about righting the ship of the erosion of public trust. It's about democracy and fairness and our fundamental right to seek justice when we've been harmed. The Constitution provides for a court system that is supposed to be accessible to every American to seek justice when we have been harmed. This law will take that away, at least in respect to pesticides. What can you do? What can we do about this? Number one, learn how to use your state legislature website. In Iowa, it's www.legis.iowa.gov, and I'll post it so you can maybe copy and paste it. Contact your Iowa state legislators, and if you're in a different state, learn how to use your state legislative website. Learn how to identify your state legislators. Learn how to find the contact information for your governor. Relentlessly call them and email them and send them letters. Relentlessly. So specifically here in Iowa, relentlessly call them and tell them to vote no on the Cancer Gag Act. Remind them every day that they got voted in by us, the people. They didn't get voted in by corporations. I mean, the corporations all spent all of this money, secret money, telling us lies to make us choose them, which we have to get better at picking through that misinformation. So that, you know what, do better, America. Like, do better about looking into stuff and who these people are. And you know what? If they're a crappy person in their life, they're probably going to be a crappy person in their legislative actions too. So we should probably stop voting for people that are crappy people. That would be, I mean, that should probably be a rule. Look into these people. Don't just vote because they have an R or a D by their name, or a red sign or a blue sign. Look into them. How do they behave in their life? How do they treat working class people? You know, if you're a waitress and they eat at your restaurant, were they crappy to you? Well, you know what? I'd freaking post about it. This guy came in here and he was a jerk. But remember, like, they are supposed to be there to protect us, to protect the people, not to put corporate profits as a priority over their constituents. You can go online, you can look up the Iowa Environmental Council. They've got some good materials and they've got some ways that you can get active. And then you could always look for groups that support farmers. There are some public health advocacy groups who are fighting this specific bill. And, you know, one of the things, if you're really active on social media, you could use the hashtag Stop the Cancer Gag Act. Maybe we could get that popular. Then you can share this information. You could share this episode or this podcast, whatever. I don't know what it's called. I'm really not tech savvy. This all happened by accident because I got mad about politicians not following the Constitution. So what I would say is, do not be quiet. Figure out the way that's best for you to voice your opinion. Do your research. Do your research into the bills that are being presented. Do your research into your legislators. Do your research into the things that are impacting your community. Here in Iowa, we have, I think, the number one growing cancer rate in the nation. Like number one for new cancers or number two for cancer total. Do you think that has anything to do with all of the chemicals, these forever chemicals that are in our land and in our water and probably in our food, in our beef, in our bacon, in our corn? Get educated on the things that are harmful in your community, the things that are hurting you, and get educated on the policies that you need to have a better life. So things that we need to have a better life. We need Medicaid. We need Medicare for our parents and grandparents. We need Social Security for our parents and grandparents. We need more tax cuts for billionaires. Like, I need a freaking hole in my head. They've had enough. And this is case in point here. They're so greedy. These corporations are so greedy. They've had, you know, trillions in tax cuts, unfettered access to our politicians to write whatever laws they want. And now they're like, you know what? We need more. So we need to make sure that we don't have to pay a farmer or a landscaper that we gave cancer to. It's ridiculous. So get educated. Get educated on the bills that are going through. Get educated on who your representatives and senators are. Get educated on policies and get educated on the policies and programs that are available in the community, you know, local, state, federal, but get educated on what is available and how those programs work, and then fight to keep them, and call, email, write your representatives every day, like relentlessly, multiple times. Just keep at it. Go to town halls, march, hold signs, be a pain in the ass. We cannot go quietly into the night as they kill us with cancer or truck crashes and they don't have to pay our families to compensate for their loss. So get loud about it, respectfully, within the confines of the law, but get loud about it. In closing, I want to make sure everybody is clear on one thing in particular, but Roundup was made by Monsanto, an American company. It was found that it causes cancer. Monsanto was then purchased by Bayer, which is a pharmaceutical company that makes cancer drugs. So they now own the product that causes cancer, and they own the product that treats the cancer. And now they're just closing out the last piece of the little trifecta with going after statutory changes to make sure that not only can they cause cancer, they can then use the cancer they cause to make money off us by selling us the pharmaceuticals to treat the cancer. And then they can get our Republican legislators and governor in the state of Iowa to give them blanket immunity so they have no losses. It's a win-win game for them. They make a profit off of the Roundup. That makes us sick, which makes them customers for their pharmaceutical company. They sell us the drugs to treat our cancer through the pharmaceutical company, and they block us from any legal remedy in the court system by spending a whole bunch of money with our politicians to get their own special law. Is there an antitrust or a monopoly aspect that we could maybe file a lawsuit there? I don't know. Seems kind of unfair.